Eid dreams in a new land. Sunbeams, thick with swirling dust, knifed through the living room window, spotlighting towers of cartons yet to be conquered. Amina waved away the particles, a dry cough escaping her lips. "Amy, are you certain we require all this?" she queried, gesturing towards a box brimming with shimmering silks and fanciful lanterns. A network of fine lines radiated from Fatima's eyes as she beamed. "Absolutely, John! It's Eid! We must conjure the essence of home here, even if Lahore feels a world away." She unfurled a garland of fairy lights shaped like crescents and stars. "Remember those nights, adorning the courtyard with these?" Amina nodded, a ghost of a smile gracing her face. She recalled the echoes of laughter, the riot of colors, the heady perfume of jasmine mingling with cardamom in the balmy air. Here, the air tasted of pine needles and something vaguely sterile. Appa always insisted on reaching the tippy top of the mimosa tree with the star, she murmured, picturing her father's lean frame perched precariously on a rickety stool. A sharp stab of sorrow pierced her, quickly banished. Appa wouldn't be there to lead the decorating this year. Fatima's smile flickered, but she quickly regained her composure. "He'd want us to celebrate, Amina. To honor our heritage." She pressed the string of lights into Amina's hands. "Help me string these up, Beta. Let's infuse this place with Noor, radiance." Later, the kitchen was enveloped in the rich aroma of biryani, whispering of faraway spice markets. Amina carefully turned the simmering rice and meat, her mother guiding her motions. "The secret lies in the dum," Fatima instructed, demonstrating how to seal the pot with a thick rope of dough to lock in the fragrant steam. "This is cooking with soul, Amina. Each grain, each spice, a tiny piece of our past." Amina felt a surge of connection to a lineage stretching back across generations. She envisioned her grandmother, her great-grandmother, countless women tending fires, preparing this sacred feast, transmitting these beloved rituals. "Amy," she began, a question taking shape. "Shall we attend the masjid tomorrow?" "Indeed, John. We must discover our community here. To share prayers, to bask in the collective spirit of Eid." The following morning, they drove to the local mosque, a humble structure nestled on a quiet avenue. The parking area was rapidly filling with vehicles, disgorging a tapestry of faces: Arab, African, South Asian, even a few American converts. A spark of optimism flickered within Amina. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could carve out a place here, a sense of belonging in this foreign landscape. Within, the mosque throbbed with life. Children darted through the corridors, women greeted each other with effusive hugs, and men exchanged robust Eid salutations. Fatima led Amina to the women's prayer hall, where they located a spot toward the rear. As the imam commenced the sermon, Amina closed her eyes, absorbing the comforting cadence of the Quranic verses. She offered a prayer for her father, for solace, and for the fortitude to embrace the unknown. She prayed for a fresh start, for a welcoming community, and for the resilience to flourish in this new chapter. After the prayer concluded, a woman with compassionate eyes and a genuine smile approached them. "Eid Mubarak," she said, extending a hand. "Welcome to our family. We're so delighted to have you." Amina offered a tentative smile in return. "Eid Mubarak," she responded, feeling a fragile seed of hope sprout within her. Perhaps this new world could indeed become home. Perhaps Eid dreams could still blossom, even in America. A shadow falls. The scent of cardamom lingered in the air as Baba slipped on his shoes. Far prayers called, a soft melody weaving through the pre-dawn quiet. He straightened his prayer cap, a familiar gesture that always brought a smile to Amina's face. "I won't be long, John," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Just to the mosque and back. We'll have that special chai you like when I return." Amina, still half asleep, mumbled a sleepy, "Okay, Baba," and snuggled deeper into her blankets. She heard the front door click shut, the faint hum of the engine as he backed the car out of the driveway. She drifted back to sleep, the promise of sweet chai a comforting lullaby. The knock came like a thunderclap, shattering the morning stillness. Amina's mother, normally a picture of serene grace, stumbled back from the door, her face ashen. Two police officers stood on the porch, their expressions grim. The words tumbled out, clipped and official, a horrifying jumble of accident, unresponsive, pronounced dead at the scene. Amina didn't register the details, only the cold, hard truth that burrowed into her heart like a shard of ice. Baba. Gone. The world tilted on its axis. The vibrant colors of her life faded to a muted gray. She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, could only stare at her mother, who had begun to wail, a raw, animal sound of unbearable grief. Within hours, their small house was overflowing with people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, friends from the mosque, a sea of concerned faces, whispering condolences, offering food and support. Imam Hassan, his face etched with sorrow, sat beside Amina's mother, his hand resting gently on her arm. He spoke of Baba's kindness, his unwavering faith, his dedication to his family and community. Amina sat numbly in a corner, watching the scene unfold as if through a thick pane of glass. The air hung heavy with the scent of incense and the murmur of prayers. Food piled up on every surface, untouched. The rhythmic recitation of the Quran filled the room, a constant reminder of their loss. Someone brought her a cup of tea, but she couldn't bring herself to drink it. Baba wouldn't be back for chai. He wouldn't tell her stories, wouldn't help her with her math homework, wouldn't walk her down the aisle one day. The future she had always imagined bright and full of promise had suddenly dissolved into a bleak and terrifying unknown. A shadow had fallen, and Amina didn't know how they would ever find their way out of the darkness. The man in black arrives. The headline screamed from the newsstand. Local family devastated in hit and run. Johnny Cash picked up a copy of the Hendersonville Standard, the thick newsprint rough against his callous fingers. He scanned the article, a knot tightening in his stomach with each line. The Khans. A young family, new to town. Their son, only 7, gone. The driver still at large. He saw Amina Khan's picture, her face blurred but her eyes sharp, even in the poor resolution. Something about her quiet dignity resonated with him. He bought the paper, the bell above the door of the corner store jingling softly as he left. Back home, June was humming a gospel tune in the kitchen, the scent of baking bread warm and comforting. He laid the paper on the table, the headline a stark contrast to the domestic scene. June glanced at it, her humming fading. "Oh, Johnny," she said, her voice heavy with sympathy. He sat down, the wooden chair groaning under his weight. "I feel drawn to this, June. That family." June put a hand on his arm, her touch grounding. "What are you thinking, darling?" "I'm thinking I need to go see them. Just be there. Let them know someone cares." June squeezed his arm. "They'll probably think you're crazy," she said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Showing up unannounced like that." "Maybe," he conceded. "But maybe they need a little crazy right now. Maybe they just need to know they're not alone." He stood up, his decision made. "I'm gonna change." The afternoon sun beat down on the quiet suburban street. Children played hopscotch on the sidewalk, their laughter echoing off the brick houses. Johnny's Cadillac, black as a preacher's coat, idled at the curb outside the Khan's modest bungalow. He killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the chirping of crickets. He stepped out of the car, his tall frame casting a long shadow. A few neighbors paused in their gardening, their eyes narrowing with curiosity. A woman watering her petunias straightened up, her face a mask of suspicion. A man washing his car stopped scrubbing, his gaze fixed on Johnny. He adjusted his black coat, the heat suddenly stifling. He walked up the short path to the Khan's front door, his boots crunching on the gravel. The small lawn was neatly mowed, a child's swing set standing silent in the corner. He raised his hand and knocked, the sound surprisingly loud in the afternoon stillness. He waited, the weight of the stairs from across the street pressing down on him. Amina's resistance. From behind the threadbare living room curtains, Amina spied Johnny Cash. Here. In their Sacramento flat, smelling faintly of furniture polish and simmering sorrow. The incongruity stung like lie. What claim did he have here, his duster a blot against the faded wall's cheerless pattern? He conferred with her mother, head cocked, a tender regard creasing his face's map of time. Resentment flared. He hadn't known Baba's easy laughter, his vibrant tales, the comforting heft of his hand. She dropped the curtain, its aged weave sighed against the pane. The air tasted of spice and aching loss. She yearned to upend it all, to tear down the flimsy pretense of normalcy. Amina John, her mother murmured, her voice a mirror reflecting Amina's own exhaustion. He's traveled far. He wishes to speak with you. Why? Amina's reply was sharp, coated in acid. Why would he bother? A sigh escaped her mother, a sound burdened with unspoken grief. He learned of Baba, of everything. He felt compelled to come, to express his sympathies. Sympathies. Hollow offerings that did nothing to mend the chasm in her spirit. I want none of it, Amina retorted, pivoting away. I want Baba. Her mother's grip on her arm was surprisingly firm. He's a good man, Amina. Just indulge him. For me? Amina yielded, not for the country star, but for her mother, whose resilience was steadily succumbing to despair. She stepped into the narrow hall, her tread leaden. Johnny Cash turned as she entered. Eyes the color of aged bourbon held a profound sadness that took her aback. A sadness, moreover, that mirrored her own desolate landscape. Amina. He rumbled, his voice a deep, resonant frequency. I am deeply sorry for your loss. She glared, her anger a low thrum beneath the surface. Why? She demanded, the question an open wound. Why him? He was a decent man. He deserved none of this. He did not recoil, nor did he offer tired clichés about divine will or life's enigmas. He simply stood there, a solid presence that wordlessly acknowledged her anguish. I can't say, Amina, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. I only know that your father's story resonated deeply with many. I only wanted to extend whatever solace I could. From his pocket he produced a handkerchief, a simple cotton square, and offered it. Amina eyed the cloth, then met Johnny Cash's gaze. Bitterness began to dissipate, supplanted by a dazed bewilderment. This icon, this legend, standing in their meager home, offering common kindness. It defied logic. But as she reached for the handkerchief, she acknowledged that perhaps the smallest act of humanity was all that remained. Stories and songs of sorrow. The silence in the small living room felt heavier than the humid air. Amina hadn't spoken since offering Johnny Cash tea, her gaze fixed on a point somewhere beyond the faded floral pattern of the rug. He knew she was seeing something he couldn't, a landscape painted with grief. Lost my brother Jack when I was just a boy, he said, his voice low and gravelly, each word carefully chosen. Sawmill accident. Changed everything. For years I blamed myself, thought I could have stopped it. The guilt. It eats at you. Amina didn't react, but he saw a flicker in her eyes, a faint acknowledgement that she'd heard. He continued, Later on, I wrestled with demons of my own. Pills, mostly. Tried to outrun the sorrow, the emptiness. Didn't work. Just dug a deeper hole. He ran a hand over his weathered face, the lines etched deep by sun and struggle. He paused, letting the weight of his confession settle in the room. Music was my lifeline. It gave me a way to pour out the darkness, to find a little light in the shadows. Sometimes, a song is the only thing that makes sense when nothing else does. He glanced at the oud resting in the corner, recognizing its shape despite never having held one. Amina finally looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a profound sadness. My father, he played that, she said, her voice barely a whisper. He taught me songs of our home. What kind of songs? He asked gently. Stories, she replied, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Stories of love, of loss, of hope. Songs of our people. Johnny Cash nodded. Music connects us, no matter where we're from. It speaks a language everyone understands. He thought of the hymns he'd sung as a boy, the gospel songs that had pulled him back from the brink. I was wondering, would you mind if I sang something? Something your father might have liked? Amina hesitated, her gaze flickering between the oud and Johnny Cash's earnest face. The offer was unexpected, a breach of the carefully constructed wall she had built around her grief. What would you sing?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," he said, a small, almost shy smile gracing his lips. "Maybe a song about faith, about holding on when you feel like letting go. I'll find something that speaks to the heart." He knew he couldn't replace her loss, but maybe, just maybe, he could offer a moment of solace, a shared space of sorrow and song. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a well-worn harmonica, holding it out to her as a silent offering. The air crackled with a fragile hope, a tentative bridge being built across a chasm of grief and misunderstanding. A hymn of hope. The air in the community hall felt heavy, a suffocating blanket of communal sorrow. Johnny Cash, whose very presence usually commanded attention, seemed diminished, almost swallowed by the collective anguish. He sat perched on a folding chair, his calloused fingers meticulously adjusting the tuning pegs of his Martin. The quiet was profound, broken only by the occasional muffled sob. Amina Khan, her features composed into a stoic mask of despair, occupied a seat near the front. Beside her, Imam Hassan offered quiet reassurance, his hand resting on her arm in a gesture of solace. The Imam's eyes, normally alight with fervent belief, reflected the community's deep sadness, a somber mirroring of their shared plight. A dry rasp escaped Johnny's throat as he cleared it, the sound echoing in the hushed space. His gaze, imbued with profound empathy, settled on Amina. "Mrs. Khan," he began, his voice a low, gravelly timbre. "I won't presume to fathom the depths of your pain. But I've known loss. I've stared into the abyss. And sometimes, a simple song is the only spark we can find." He strummed a chord, then another, testing the acoustics. A moment passed, his lips moving in silent supplication. Then he began to sing. This was no rowdy anthem, no tale of prison walls or outlaw bravado. It was Amazing Grace. His voice, imbued with raw feeling, resonated through the room, a balm for wounded spirits. It wasn't a flawless performance, but something far more profound, more authentic. Each note echoed a life etched with hardship, with errors and hard-won wisdom, a faith tested to its limits, ultimately affirmed. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. Amina's eyes glistened, tears carving trails down her cheeks, silent testament to her grief. Imam Hassan's gentle squeeze was her only acknowledgement. Around them, others wept without sound, finding catharsis in the simple melody. Johnny continued, his voice unwavering, a beacon in the gloom. He wasn't proselytizing, not seeking converts. He simply offered comfort, a shared space for sorrow and the faintest glimmer of hope. The familiar lyrics, while born of Christian tradition, transcended the bounds of creed, speaking to the inherent human yearning for solace and redemption. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. As the final verse faded, a sense of tranquility descended upon the room. The grief remained, a palpable weight, yet it was now interwoven with something more, a feeling of kinship, of shared humanity, a fragile flame of hope daring to flicker in the darkness. Johnny concluded the hymn, the last chord dissolving into the silence. A tender smile played on his lips as he looked at Amina. "May it bring you some small measure of peace," he murmured. Speechless, Amina could only nod, her eyes overflowing with gratitude. Imam Hassan embraced Johnny, offering a whispered prayer of thanks in Arabic. The community, still reeling from their loss, began to stir, offering words of solace and support. The hymn, a small act of grace, had woven a fragile thread of connection, a testament to the power of music to mend and unite in the face of unbearable sorrow. Words of hate. The mournful strains of "I Walk the Line" hung in the air, a fragile shield against the oppressive silence that had threatened to consume the Khan's living room. Amina sat huddled on the floor, her face buried in her hands, the melody a thin thread connecting her to a world that felt irrevocably broken. Imam Hassan sat beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, his eyes filled with a sorrow that mirrored her own. Suddenly, A guttural shout ripped through the quiet, shattering the delicate peace. "Get out! Get out of our town, you towel-headed freaks!" Billy Ray Johnson stood on the porch, his face contorted with rage, spittle flying from his lips as he spewed his venom. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, darted around, seeking validation from some unseen audience. Amina flinched, recoiling as if struck. The music faltered, the comforting baritone of Johnny Cash abruptly silenced. The room went cold. "Billy Ray, stop it!" someone yelled from the small crowd gathered on the lawn. It was Mrs. Henderson, her face pale but resolute. He ignored her. "Go back where you came from! We don't want your kind here. This is America, not whatever hellhole you crawled out of." Imam Hassan rose to his feet, his expression a mask of controlled anger. "Billy Ray," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This is a time for mourning. Show some respect." Billy Ray laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Respect? You want respect? You people disrespect everything this country stands for. You're all terrorists. Every last one of you." Amina squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her face. The words were like physical blows, each one a fresh wound on her already battered soul. She felt exposed, vulnerable, stripped bare in front of everyone. Johnny Cash stepped forward, his face etched with disappointment. He looked older in that moment, the weight of the world pressing down on him. "Billy Ray," he said, his voice low and weary. "These are good people. They're hurting. Don't make it worse." "Shut your mouth, Cash," Billy Ray sneered. "You're just a washed-up has-been, pandering to the others." He gestured vaguely towards Amina, his face twisted with disgust. The fragile sense of community that had begun to blossom in the wake of tragedy withered and died under the scorching heat of Billy Ray's hate. The underlying tensions, the simmering prejudices that had always lurked beneath the surface of their small town, had finally erupted, poisoning the air and threatening to consume them all. Speaking truth to prejudice. The air crackled, not just with the summer heat, but with a simmering rage. Billy Ray Johnson, face puce, spat on the sun-baked earth. "Terrorists," he roared, the word a venomous sting. "That's all they are. Good riddance to the lot of 'em." Imam Hassan, his face etched with sorrow lines deepened by this new assault, stepped forward. "Please, Mr. Johnson. Show some respect. A man has died. Respect? They don't deserve respect. They blow up our buildings, kill our soldiers." He lumbered closer, a bear spoiling for a fight. Amina flinched, shrinking back into the meager shade offered by the funeral tent. The scent of lilies, meant to soothe, now felt cloying, suffocating. A deep voice, gravelly and calm, cut through the volatile air. "Now hold on just a minute, Billy Ray. Johnny Cash." He moved with a deliberate slowness that belied the steel in his gaze. He stood between Billy Ray and the grieving family, a wall of quiet strength. He didn't raise his voice, didn't clench his fists. He just looked at Billy Ray with a profound disappointment that seemed to deflate the man's anger, if only for a moment. "I know you're hurting, Billy Ray. We all are in our own way. But speaking like that here today, it ain't right. Imam Hassan and his family are good people. They lost a father, a husband. They're grieving, just like anyone else would be." Billy Ray sputtered, searching for a comeback, but Johnny held up a hand, silencing him. "Your words are poison, Billy Ray. They're not helping anyone. They're just spreading more pain." He lowered his voice, so only Billy Ray could hear. "I expected better of you." Amina found a wellspring of courage she didn't know she possessed. The man in black's quiet dignity emboldened her. She stepped out from the shadows, her voice trembling but clear. "My father was a doctor. He healed people. He saved lives. He loved this country. How dare you stand here and slander his name?" Tears streamed down her face, but her chin was lifted, her eyes blazing. "You don't know us. You don't know anything about our faith, our values. You only see what you want to see, fueled by your own hate." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Heads nodded in agreement. Mrs. Henderson, known for her prize-winning apple pies and staunch opinions, stepped forward and put a comforting arm around Amina's shoulders. "She's right, Billy Ray. You ought to be ashamed of yourself." Others followed suit, forming a protective circle around Amina and her family. Disapproval hung heavy in the air, palpable, suffocating. Even the buzzing of the cicadas seemed to quiet in deference to the moment. Billy Ray, faced with the united front of the community, shuffled his feet, his bluster fading like a cheap photograph left in the sun. He mumbled something unintelligible and turned away, disappearing into the crowd, leaving behind only the lingering stench of his prejudice. A bridge of music and hope. The air in the Khan household remained thick with sorrow, a palpable thing you could almost taste. But amidst the grief, a fragile hope was beginning to bloom, nurtured by unexpected kindness. Johnny Cash became a frequent visitor, his presence a quiet anchor in their storm. He'd sit with Amina's mother, Nusrat, sharing stories of loss and resilience, his deep voice a soothing balm. He'd bring simple gifts, a flowering plant for the windowsill, a book of poetry, a vinyl record of classical Arabic music he'd found in Memphis. Imam Hassan, his own heart heavy with the loss of Omar, worked tirelessly to unite the community. He spoke of forgiveness, not forgetting, and of building bridges, not walls. The mosque organized a fundraising dinner to support the Khan family. The outpouring of generosity was overwhelming, casseroles overflowing with comfort food, handwritten checks, and children emptying their piggy banks. Even some of Billy Ray Johnson's relatives, faces etched with shame, contributed anonymously. Billy Ray himself remained a ghost, retreating into the shadows of his own making. He avoided eye contact, his swagger gone, replaced by a shuffling awkwardness. Eid al-Adha arrived, a bittersweet occasion. Amina's family, surrounded by friends and neighbors, gathered for prayer. The absence of her father was a gaping wound, but his spirit permeated everything. Nusrat, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute, prepared her husband's favorite dishes. The aroma of cardamom and saffron filled the house, a fragrant tribute to his memory. After the prayers and the feasting, Johnny Cash sat with Amina on the porch swing. He held his guitar, its wood worn smooth with time. "Your father loved this one," he said softly, tuning the strings. He began to play Peace in the Valley, his voice resonating with a heartfelt sincerity that transcended language and culture. Amina listened, tears streaming down her face. Then, hesitantly, she began to sing along, her voice blending with his, a testament to the enduring power of music to heal and connect. The melody, familiar from her childhood, wrapped around her like a warm embrace, a link to her father, to her past, and to a future she was beginning to believe might still hold joy. Later that evening, as the Eid festivities wound down, Billy Ray approached Amina. He stood at the edge of the yard, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Amina," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. I am so sorry. For everything." He looked up, his eyes filled with genuine remorse. "Your father, he didn't deserve. None of this should have happened." Amina looked at him, her heart still aching, but a flicker of understanding softened her gaze. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," she said quietly. "It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. It was a fragile bridge built on sorrow and regret, but a bridge nonetheless. A bridge of music and hope, stretching towards a future where understanding and compassion might finally prevail."